This is day 19 of building a billion-dollar business in public. Let's get straight into it. As always, we're going to start with answering your guys' questions on YouTube. So if you want to ask me any questions whatsoever, leave a comment down below. I'll answer it in the next video. Then we're going to get into the topic of today's video, which is how much work does it really take to escape the 9 to 5? And then last but not least, we're going to do a little bit of strategizing. Now, for those of you who have no clue what's going on and you don't know who I am, my name is Bigo, and this is my daily second YouTube channel. I have a primary channel called Bigo Official. You can check it out. But for a little bit of kind of an introduction, this is me. This is when I first started programming back in 2017. First language was MATLAB. It was for my robotics team. We ended up winning the Los Angeles Regional Championship. From then on, I dove into software engineering. I went to UCLA to research the human consciousness at the Elegance Mind Club. Afterwards, I joined NASA as a computer engineer. After NASA, I went to the Fortune 500 as a software engineering consultant, consulted for these companies alongside many others. And after making manager after 3 years, I quit to found my own analytics firm. This is what I'm running to this day. It's a consulting, B2B consulting analytics firm. And this is what's going to essentially help me get to $1 billion. Now, of course, I'm very far away. We've got about 990 million still left to go. But nevertheless, this is my journey and this is what I'm trying to do with these daily YouTube video series. If you want to know more about me, I skipped a lot of wins, even more losses. Go to my website, personal website. It'll be down in the description below too, so you can check it out. Without further ado, let's get straight into the video. So let's refresh the page to make sure we got all the comments. Perfect. So we got one comment. VSP asks, how important is optimal sleep/recovery for entrepreneurs versus grinding through late night sessions over the long run? Extremely. So there is this idea of hustle culture, grind culture, that if you don't sleep, you pull all-nighters, blah, 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 you're going to be productive. But what most people don't understand is that they mix up work, specifically the quantity, right, with productivity. You'll see a lot of individuals saying, yeah, I work 16-hour days, 17-hour days, 18-hour days. I've been doing it for the past 1 or 2 years. And then you'll ask, if you've been working so hard, where are the results? Oh, it takes time. You know, it takes time to get these things. It takes time to be successful, blah, blah, blah. Sure, it takes time. But 2 years of working 18-hour days, you should not be at the level that you're at currently. There is fundamentally something wrong. That's because most people delude themselves into thinking any type of work, any type of menial work, just because they do a lot of quantity of it, it's productive, actual leveraged work. It's not, okay? I would even argue that the whole entire work hard thing, and this is actually what today's video is largely going to be based on, it's really a facade. Now, don't take that in the wrong direction. Understand that you're not supposed to work hard. You're supposed to work very hard and you're supposed to work very smart. Both are true at the same time. However, what you might be considering work is something that you should not fundamentally do. In terms of recovery and sleep, I try to get at the bare minimum at least 7 hours of sleep every single night. Sometimes it doesn't end up happening just because I have a lot of things on my plate, but that is what I try to get to, and I hold that very strictly. If there's anything that's gonna, let's say, mess up my sleep, or I have to, you know, someone invites me out for something, I'm gonna be like, no, I have a specific bedtime, I'm gonna go to sleep at this time. I take sleep very importantly, because not only is sleep necessary for your health, but it's also the time when you actually learn a lot too. There's a bunch of, I can get into the scientific studies of it with regards to, you know, it kind of replays all the stuff you went throughout in your day, all the stuff you learned, it replays it. You actually learn a lot in your sleep too and how important it is. Let me just put it this way. Number one thing in life is your health. Sleep is the biggest contributor to your health. That should already tell you enough. Do not sacrifice your sleep or recovery for whatever the case in terms of, you know, whatever you're going to get into entrepreneurship. 1 day out of the month, you got to get something done, let it be. But thinking that for the next 3 months, you're going to pull, let's say, all-nighters, or you're only going to sleep 2 or 3 hours a day, that is not smart, not at all. So with that, let's actually move on to how much work does it really take to escape the 9 to 5. Now, I'm placing it as 9 to 5 because most software engineers that I talk to, they don't even think it's feasible to make an income outside of a 9 to 5. So they don't know a way to make money outside of an employer on their own. They know it's a possibility for other people, but they don't think it's a reality for them, okay? So success is how I'm going to define it. If you as a software engineer can make money outside of your 9 to 5 and escape it, I would consider that to be a successful thing that you can do. So the question remains, how hard do you have to work? Most people think they have to move mountains for this. Most people think I have to learn so much, I have to start a business, I have to make sure the business succeeds. All these things, right? For me to be, quote unquote, successful enough to replace my 9 to 5. So let's just break it down into what it actually entails. And I'm going to use myself as an example. Now, I've always been what you might call a hard worker. Not the hardest working, but I've been a hard worker. High school, I always stayed after school for classes. I took classes that required me to take after school. A senior year, everybody took 5 classes to leave school early. I always took full 7, so I stay way past everybody else, get stuff done. My entire life, I've worked harder than the average person. But I realized essentially from, if I take a look at, let's say, high school to my 9 to 5, even though I worked harder than, I want to say, 90% of people, my results did not match that much hard work. Now, granted, I was still in my early 20s. I had a 6-figure job. That's still very impressive for my age. However, for the amount of work that I put in, I was expecting a lot more, because at the same time, I saw people that were 1,000x my income, let's say, at the same exact age, and it felt like we were putting in the same amount of hours. It's just that their hours were being put into something completely different. So then I started asking myself this exact question. We all have 24 hours in a day. So we can all only work so hard, meaning we can all only work 24 hours, and then it's essentially dependent on your health, on when you're going to give up, right? When your body's going to give out. So naturally, we allocate some time to food and then eating. So essentially the necessities. And the real difference between somebody who works hard and somebody who doesn't work hard, I'm talking about the average person, is what other activities, extraneous activities they have outside of the necessities. So the person who's actually working the hardest has the minimum number of activities outside of work as possible. So only the necessary stuff. Maybe taking a shower, eating, sleeping, right? These type of tasks. And then the other individual might have, let's say, gaming or watching a movie, watching a TV show, all these things. So essentially, each person sort of has to pick their own poison on what they want to go with. One person wants to spend more time doing this. That means he has less time for work, blah, 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 blah. So it all comes down to, end of the day, how many hours in a day, consistently, day to day, week to week, month to month, are you putting into quote-unquote work? Okay, let's assume one person does 4 hours, one person does 8 hours. Logically speaking, based on, if you take a look at this from a logical perspective, on a formulaic perspective, especially as a software engineer, you'll think, okay, granted, naturally, the person who's working the 8 hours should be able to get more done than the person who's working the 4 hours. Okay? Now, that might be true. The person working 8 hours might be able to get more done, assuming their intelligence level is the same, assuming everything else is the same. It's the same person, one's choosing to work 4 hours, one's choosing to work 8 hours. So why is it that this person can get disproportionate returns of about 10x, and this individual can get disproportionate returns comparably to, let's say, only 1x, even though this one worked 2 times less, right? So the better question isn't necessarily how many hours you're putting into it. The better question is, what are you working on? It's never about how much, right? It's never about where. It's always about the what. What are you fundamentally working on? That is the biggest leverage. So if this was, let's say, a formula, and this formula to success was, let's say, what you're working on, plus the amount of hours you work, right? And then plus, let's say, some arbitrary miscellaneous multiplier. And if I were to add coefficients next to these numbers, the leverage for what you're working on would be 100x, whereas the how much you're working on would maybe, let's say, be about 2 to 3 range. Okay, and then this one we'll just put like an arbitrary, I don't know, 2. This one doesn't really matter. I should only do these 2 really. What you're working on is fundamentally the most important thing. So I always take a look at my life when I was in my 9 to 5 days, right? When I worked extremely hard in university, I stayed after school in high school, I did so many extracurriculars, I really tried my best to get into the best possible position, and I got a six-figure job, and I thought, wow, I made it, only to realize that, in a sense, I could have gotten exactly where I got to by working way less. I just had to be a little smarter in my approach and what specifically I spent time on. So, how much work does it really take to escape the 9 to 5? Way less than you think. However, with your current mindset, just like how I thought, you will probably sabotage yourself if you decide to put in as little hours as possible. Because the truth about hard work, it's never really about how hard you're working, how much you're working on it, but it's all about working enough until you realize, wait, in terms of the 80-20 rule, right, I should really only focus my efforts on 20% of the things. So you'll notice that if you, even throughout the day, you're working on something, maybe 1 or 2 hours of your entire work thing will be productive or will benefit any type of results, reap any type of results. That's the biggest, what can I even like, truth bomb, you can say, whatever you want to call it. That's just reality, right? So the way you want to think about it, it's not necessarily how much work does it really take for me to escape my 9 to 5. It's first, let me identify what work even is to me. For most of you, work is you wake up, you have a mandatory Scrum meeting, you're not doing any work there. In fact, you hate being on that Scrum meeting. Then you probably have some coding task you're going to do, and you're doing it because you need to get a Jira ticket completed. You're not doing it out of your own volition. You're not excited about it. You then probably have another meeting. You'll then have a lunch break, maybe bathroom break, and then more meetings, and then work a little bit more on the technical aspect of things. Sign off, call it a day. Okay? If we take a look at the actual work done, it was maybe just these 1 to 2 hours, or let me be generous, let me say 3 to 4 hours on the technical thing you worked on. But then now, that technical thing you worked on, we now have to answer, what is it? Because fundamentally speaking, the only difference between me, you and I right now, if this is me, if this is you, everything else is the same. You at your current 9 to 5, right? You are working, let's say, 4 very productive hours on what it is that you're doing. And I'm going to put, let's say, I'm just going to do 4 over here. And then let's assume that's a multiplier of 3, right? And you're working on this technical problem for your 9 to 5. Well, strictly from a leverage perspective, it's, let's say, only 100x. And then x I'm just going to replace with like 1, just to keep the things similar. And then let's say me over here, I'm working only 2 hours, productive hours in a day, right? Same exact outlier. But instead, because the what I'm working on is my own business, I have a lot more leverage on it, right? It's, let's say, 1000x. So you can already see the difference in the quote-unquote success factor at the very end here. It's not even comparable. Because you're working a lot more hours, it doesn't matter. Your multiplier is very little compared to what you're working on. This is the entire reasoning behind why I always say it's much easier than you think to truly escape your 9 to 5. Because fundamentally speaking, if we want to talk about, let's say, making a certain amount of money, let's say you're making $150,000 a year right now, and you want to be able to replace this income. What are you currently doing to replace this income at your 9 to 5? Let's see, you're working 40 hours a week, if not more, and you don't get paid overtime, so no overtime. You get paid a W-2 on a bi-weekly or monthly basis, most often than not bi-weekly, every second Friday, right? A lot of that gets already taxed, 401k, health insurance, all these things. You're maybe left, the actual money that hits your bank account probably accounts to, I want to say, 60% of the actual hours you worked. So a little like 20 to 25 hour range. So that's really how much work you did in terms of that you got paid for. But you're still putting in over 40 hours a lot of the time, but you're only getting paid for 20 to 25 hours. So if you add up all the math, right, throughout the year, let me pull up a calculator over here. If you're working 40 hours every single week, right, you have how many weeks in a year? 52 weeks in a year, right? That's 2,080 hours a year for you to make $150,000. Now, most of you will be working a lot more than this. And by work, I don't necessarily mean that you're gonna have to be typing or coding for 2,080 hours. I mean, the fact that you cannot put this energy, you cannot put this time into anything else means you're dedicating it to this. Because even if you're not doing anything, even if you're in a useless meeting, watching a movie or a TV show, that still means you can't be doing what you should be doing, which is actually working on something proper with high leverage, okay? It's still a waste of time. Now, let's apply this same $150,000 in a year, and we have 2,080 hours to make this much money throughout the year. If, I'm gonna start off with the basics. You wanna start a consultancy, service-based business. You as a software engineer, you wanna consult other businesses on software, you wanna create custom software for them, you wanna do a SaaS later, it doesn't even matter. The average client, I'm gonna do even 5K. In the US, you can easily take this up to 10K, but let's say the average client to you is worth $5,000, okay? Now, if I wanna divide 150 by 5, I get 30 clients, right? Will give me $150,000. Do you believe if you spend 2,080 hours, you won't be able to find 30 clients? And if I change this into 10,000, this now becomes 15 clients. 2,080 hours to find 15 clients. Think about that. Let me put it into another perspective. If, let's say, we're only talking about reaching out, you need 10K, that gives you one client. To get one client, let's assume you get people on a sales call and you're a horrible salesperson, you only close every 1 in 5 people, 20%, which means you have to get 5 people on a sales call. To get 5 people on a sales call, let's assume you have to get a positive response from people and your positive response rate is only about 1%, which means you have to reach out to minimum 500 people, right? And then for people to even receive a positive response from you, for people to give you a positive response, they first even have to open your email in the first place. And then not only do they have to be able to reply, but also they should be able to not send you a negative reply, right? So let's assume that's gonna be 10%, right? Which would mean, fundamentally speaking, you would need to reach out to 5,000 individuals, cold email them, cold DM, cold whatever, for you to close one client, right? So if you want to do 15 clients, you're going to need to do this times 15, okay? Which is about 75,000, I believe. Now you might think, oh my God, 75,000, that's so crazy. That's way too many people. There's no way in 2,080 hours I can reach out to 75,000 people. Well, now you have to ask yourself, is there something I don't know about doing this that maybe I can leverage it or I can use it to reach out to this many people way faster and easier? I mean, we're gonna talk about emailing tools I already showed you in my last video, but if me personally right now, I'm sending out, let's say 500 emails for just one campaign, but I have many other campaigns running and I can send out hundreds of thousands of emails a day if I really want to, okay? So if I decide to send out 1,000 emails a day, right? And if we just do the math, guess what? That's 75 days. So all I have to do is realize that if I send 1,000 emails a day for 75 days straight, right, I can make my $150,000. And all I really need is 2,080 hours to send those 1,000 emails a day. You can probably do this with just 80 hours allocated to setting up the email infrastructure that you need, finding your offer, validating it with a person, right? And constantly retesting it. And you already have all the infrastructure ready to go in under 80 hours, in less than, I would say, 3 days, okay? And that will set you up for essentially 75 days of sending 1,000 emails a day. Now, maybe you wanna dedicate another 100 hours to learning about copywriting. You wanna dedicate another 100 to maybe learning, a little bit deeper about what it is that you have to offer. Spend another 100 to learn about onboarding. Spend another 100 to learn about proper fulfillment processes. Spend another 100 to learn about sales calls. Spend another 100 to learn about headlines and subheadlines. Spend another 100 to learn about subject lines. All these minute skills you learn once, and that's it. You have it for the next year. You don't have to relearn it. It will only continuously get better and better. But even if I add all these guys up, 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 780, hours. Still nowhere close to our 2080, and you're already making this much money. So in terms of how hard really do you have to work to escape your 9 to 5? Not as hard as you nearly think. Okay? We just did the math. It really is this simple. The hardest part about all of this is understanding the what. What do I work on? What do I choose? What do I focus on to spend my hours? Because the only difference between you and I, once again, everything else equal, no matter how hard you work in your current 9 to 5, you will never, ever be able to make nearly as much money as I'm taking home simply because of the leverage. The what that I'm working on is so much more leveraged, fundamentally speaking, on a mathematical formula. If S is for success, right? Once again, this is the amount of hours you work, right? And then this is, let's say, the what you're working on. If the amount of hours you work has a natural coefficient of 3, right? And then the what differs from, let's say, 100 to a million, right? Because everybody has the same 24 hours in a day. How can some people be billionaires, other people multimillionaires, other people not even have enough money to, let's say, get food, okay? It's all because of the what. For some people, this is 0.1. For some people, this is 1,000, okay? This is the most important thing. So out of the 2,080 hours, a good portion of that should be spent on identifying this what. Once you understand the what, all these things fall into place because they're not nearly as complicated as people make it out to be. Furthermore, I have a separate video on this, but if you guys think these skills will take you a long time to figure out, you are dead wrong because you're already a software engineer. You already learned one of the hardest things on the planet. You already went through one of the hardest majors on the planet as well. And you're already doing some of the hardest work on the planet. And it's literally proven that the software engineers, most of the time, or any type of engineer, is way above the bell curve in terms of IQ. We are around this portion. So in terms of our capacity to learn things, how fast we comprehend things, how fast we learn things, we already have a natural advantage over other people. So all we really need to understand is two things. First and foremost, it is possible. We need to understand it's possible and we can do it ourselves. And second, we need to allocate the necessary time to understanding the what. It's less about how many hours I can put in, but understanding what can I put it on such that I can then think about what I need to remove from my productivity routine, all these things. So before you even watch another productivity video or anything of that sort, you need to first identify, is what I'm working on fundamentally high leverage enough? If not, that's the biggest thing that you need to change, okay? Hopefully this made sense. Let me know if you want me to expand on this. I know this was a little long-winded type of video, but I really needed to make sure that you guys understand it, and that's why I use the formulas and everything for you to know that yes, you need to work hard, yes, you need to work smart, but it's not nearly as much work as you think it is, right? Most of it is pain tolerance, most of it is self-sabotage, most of it is your ego, most of it are like you not even believing in yourself, you not understanding what the reality is. It's all these things, and this is all the things that I went through. So the real hard work in my case was just finding these limiting beliefs, and it was really identifying what I should be working on. Once I had those down, it was a simple formula. Hey, I know if I reach out to 1,000 people a day for 75 days, and I reach out to 75,000 people in total, I can make $150,000 a month. Excuse me, a year. That's as simple as that, and that's a replacement of your 9 to 5. And of course, if you up these numbers, right, charge more per client, close more clients, blah, 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 you can make a lot more money. But that's essentially what it takes. Whew, okay, so with that, let me like this to make sure I know that I answered it, and then we should have no more comments. So a little bit about strategy. We'll have a video coming out Monday for the main channel. It'll be a pretty funny type short video you guys will see. It's essentially how to ruin your software engineering career in 90 seconds or less. I highly recommend you give it a watch. In terms of our daily channel, not too bad. Our most recent video actually did not good. We got a decent amount of impressions, but our click-through rate was very low, meaning our thumbnail wasn't up to par. So as always, we got to spend a little bit more time on the thumbnails. It's just I barely have enough time to get these videos out in a day. So like the time I'm recording this, I just send it out to the editor, and then he fixes the stuff, and then essentially just uploads it. And for the thumbnails too, I already have them working on the main channel stuff. I told them not to focus too much on this, so sometimes I'll just upload the thumbnail myself. But you can definitely see if it's me uploading it or if it's somebody else uploading it. But essentially, that's pretty much it for now. I don't think there's really much else to take a look at. Trying to think if I'm forgetting anything, but no. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching today's video, guys. If you have any questions whatsoever, drop it in the comments below. If you want to see anything about a specific topic as well, let me know. As always, thank you so much for watching, and have a good one.